right, let's get started. We have a quorum. I know that other people are on the way. I have to leave at 8 o'clock. My kids and I are driving to Canada tonight to see friends and won't get rolling to Vancouver until 2 in the morning. So I will hand off the meeting after some voting things happen to my able vice president. So right now we have to elect a secretary, and I didn't have a chance to email the board to talk to you about who wants to do that.
Don't all rush forward. Well, I did it last month, so I'm gonna pass. I thought you were all gonna praise me for such a wonderful job.
You did. It was awesome.
Oh, will you be secretary if we praise you?
No, that won't work, I'm sorry, the time is
It's too
past.
late now.
I think we better figure out ahead of time who wants to do it, and then we can figure that out. I know I'm not here enough to be able to take that on.
Can somebody do it just for tonight?
I'm willing to do it just for tonight,
Thank
but I
you.
just am not here enough to
Yep.
take it on.
Okay.
But I need to borrow a piece of paper.
Oh, yeah. That's the one thing I can provide you with.
Okay,
Oh, no.
thanks.
This is nicer than mine.
It's lines, you can keep it parallel and perpendicular.
You'll get a lot of copies of paper.
All right, so we introduce ourselves. This is the time that if you have something happening in your neck of the woods or something that you want to talk about, so that you don't have to wait till the end of a very long meeting where we argue over minutes or whatever, and tell us what you're here to talk about, issues that are happening in your part of the neighborhood. So when you introduce yourself, if you want to tell us then. So I'm Tracy Prince. I've lived in the neighborhood since 2001.
I'm Sherry Sally. I've lived in Portland and Goose for over 6 years.
Michael Mahaffey, lived in an apartment, a renter, and definitely not a retiree.
I just can't stick it.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm sorry, I'm late.
We're just starting.
Okay. What should I say? I'm Andrea Spirey.
Yeah, are you a renter or?
Oh, I'm a renter.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. I'm a renter. I've been here like 3 years, 3.5 years. I like it here.
I'm Cal Toth.
What do I have to say?
Anything you want, nothing at all.
That's it. I've been secretary far too many times to volunteer tonight. Thanks.
Roger Leachman, I'm a resident, and I'm the one without a name tag.
Liz Paris, and I'm acting secretary for tonight.
Eric Simon, local gadfly. After people in the audience have a chance to speak, I do need the mic back on a couple of meetings I've gone to that are not on the agenda.
Okay. Let's go start on this end.
And if people could sign the sign-up sheet, I'll pass it back around.
I'm Michael Goose. I own a house in the
My name is Daniel Salomon. I'm a resident of Goose Hollow, and I've been here since 2013.
I'm Annie Meharry. I'm an owner in the neighborhood, and I've been here since 2011.
My name is Douglas Cook. I've lived in Goose Hollow for probably 30 years.
Welcome.
And my name is Holly Hanson, and I live at PSU by the engineering building, and I've worked with Tiffany on neighborhood issues.
You want to go back to Tiffany? We skipped over you. Oh, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tiffany Hammer, and what was the question?
We're just introducing ourselves. Anything you want to say?
Okay, great. I'm sorry we're late. We just came from North Portland to represent Goose Hollow Neighborhood Association for the efforts. Yes.
Thank you. Good job, guys. Thanks.
Thanks.
So I'm Mary Fetch, I'm with the MAC. My announcement is TriMet has changed the location of their board meeting. That's next Wednesday is when they will have their second reading and a vote on the proposal to close stations. You guys over the months have been so fabulous, showing up, testifying, helping to, sign letters and things like that. So it's been helpful, and I think that's why the proposal is to just close this for a year and then reevaluate. Now, that sounds like they're giving us something, they're really not, it's kind of just a punt. And we've been saying for so long that this neighborhood is changing so fast, but nothing is going to change within 1 year. Butler Block won't be open, Lincoln, nothing here will change at all of all the thousands of people who are moving here and going to live in these apartments. So a year is just an arbitrary number that doesn't have a lot of meaning. The meeting starts at 9. It'll be at the U of O building in Old Town. It's because it's also an ordinance. They will have the public comment from 9 to 9:45 that many of you will come to. And then they will have the ordinance probably closer to, say, 10:30, 11 in the morning. They will still take testimony at that, if anyone wanted to come, so.
Mary, do you think they're just kind of splitting the baby there? Is that the idea?
Yeah, I mean, there are thousands of people who have written and testified and written letters. I think they were surprised by that much opposition. So it looks like they're listening, but they're not. So I will just say that.
So that's Wednesday?
Wednesday, the 24th, 9 a.m. is the public comment period from 9 to 9:45. And then probably the ordinance will be taken up somewhere around 10:30, 11. It's just hard to say.
So do we have anybody who can go and testify to prevent the Kings Hill Max stop from being closed and to sort of basically say what Mary just said for Wednesday at 9 o'clock? Daniel, are you available for that?
Yeah, Mother.
We can help you with the text of basically what she was saying.
Okay,
Yeah.
Jerry and Daniel.
Oh,
Mark?
Mark, you had a question?
Did you say they're gonna close it for a year or leave it open for another year?
Close it for a year.
So that really means it's closed permanently.
Right.
They're gonna, so if any of you have ridden the train at all when they were building the hotel next to the convention center station, they closed the west side platform because the construction was right there. They basically will put a fence around it and they will stop and they will ding the bell twice and then they will proceed. So they'll do that for a year.
What's the point of that? It's not going to speed it up then, right?
Exactly.
It closes in September. There's a sign already up.
Yeah, but they said that.
Yeah, I just
the
heard a
ordinance
rumor
is
they were gonna delay the whole decision for a year, so that, what I heard was false.
And Jerry's trying to make a comment on this.
Yeah, one of the supports that TriMet keeps using is that, oh, we close it during the Timbers game, and that's fine. Well, they leave it open during the Thorns games. Now, what's that about? There are no incidents that I watched that one, the last Thorns game carefully. No incidents, no problem. In fact, it spreads out the door opening issues over 2 stations instead of 1 station. I think we need to make that point.
Excellent.
So next week,
Okay.
great. And I'll send the info if you guys then want to
So at least
send it out.
Jerry and Daniel will be there.
Great, thank you.
Yes. Or actually, Dwight, want to go ahead and go? We're just introducing ourselves.
Thought you were done with that, I was getting coffee. Dwight Terry, back representative.
Marianne Ritchie, I'm a board trustee here at the MAC.
Hi, I'm Dan Hughes, I'm pastor at Zion, right out your window there. I've been at Zion now about 3 years. This is my first neighborhood meeting. And I'm here primarily to advocate for Goose holidays, and doing that again this year because some of the things at Zion that are important to us are loving your neighbors and cultivating community.
Great, thank you.
Thank you
Welcome.
so much. And also, are there any people at Zion who would be very upset with the Kings Hill Max closure?
Yes, in fact, I went and testified at one of the TriMet meetings, and I plan to be there on Wednesday.
Excellent.
Although my job is unpredictable, things can come up at the
Right.
last minute.
Thank you so much for getting involved with Goose Holidays. We've been looking for a hero on that. All right, Mark.
Who's that stranger back there?
Mark Velke, I'm basically here for the cookies.
I'm John Wilson, Goose Hollow resident of 2 years.
All right. Okay, So, Roger, how, I nominate Tiffany or?
No, if you nominate her, you need to leave the chair and nominate her. Otherwise, someone else can nominate her, and I'm sure any of us will be perfectly happy to do so.
And I second the nomination. Only if we can refer to her as the Rose Lady as opposed to the Boulder Lady.
Small point of order, a nomination doesn't require a second.
Well, it's been seconded 4 times.
Yes.
Okay, any other discussion? I just want to say that Tiffany's a fireball, and I am so excited to have you live part of our neighborhood and really giving your energy to things that we all care about. And thank you. You've already done so much, so can't wait.
Thank you, everyone.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor of electing Tiffany to the board, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Get up here. Find a seat.
Is there a seat?
Right
Tiffany?
And then Tiffany has agreed to co-chair the Safety, Parking, and Transportation Committee, and I believe I do make
You nominate and we
I nominate.
advise,
I'm
yeah.
making the recommendation, and all in favor of Tiffany co-chairing that committee, please raise your hand. It's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay.
Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
I just had a couple of things to go over that were not on the agenda. You had mentioned earlier when we introduced ourselves, so I just made 2 quick things.
Okay.
One, if you're a resident of Goose Hollow, you've either received this or you will be receiving it. It's the sewer repair project. It's not going to start until probably mid or late 2020, and they show you a map, not to scale, of where the work is going to be done. And then you can sign up at a email address to get additional notification when they're going to be specifically in your neck of the woods. The other thing that I want to bring to everyone's attention is I went to the, I don't have that information here. The meeting, it was the Movement Forward. It was held in several other states, Athens, Georgia, Indianapolis, Indiana, Portland, Oregon, and then they're also moving to, I think, Dallas, Texas. And what it primarily is, was it's a one congregation, one precinct called One Cop Initiative, the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, NOBLE, and the National Sheriff's Association are all partnered in an initiative to bridge communication gaps between community members and law enforcement. So this was more or less just, not really a focus group, it was really just to get people's feelings. The thing that I found most interesting, they had representatives from, I think, 10 neighborhood associations and other black community groups. And it was interesting when they asked, what is your relationship with the police? 9 of the neighborhood associations that were primarily white said very good. And one neighborhood association, also Caucasian, and all of the black or African American priests, Latino people that were there, all said their relationships with the police were very awful. So it was a very interesting dichotomy. And as I say, this was more of a meet and greet. It's supposed to be an 18-month program, but I don't know whether they're going to be coming back for more focus groups. They wanted really better communication between the police and communities. So that's what went on in a nutshell. Thank you.
Thanks. Tiffany, would you like to report on what you just did in the Civic Life Code change meeting you just went to?
Yes, I should grab out the paperwork that we got at the meeting, but myself along with 2 of my neighbor renters.
Tiffany, could you speak up, please?
And you can use the mic also.
Thank
it'd
you
be a
so
little
much.
Better to hear.
So we just attended at the Water Bureau over in North Portland, a discussion on the chapter 3.96 of removing that from the neighborhood associations code, and you, Tracy, can you step in a little bit more about
Oh, yeah,
this?
removing, so that removes the mention of neighborhood associations from the code. It removes requirements for open meetings and open records for neighborhoods. It removes the ability to file grievances if someone doesn't have open meetings or open records. So it basically is a recipe for graft.
It'll give the director the discretion to recognize groups, including neighborhoods, and potentially to change the funding, remove the funding for neighborhood associations also.
So here, just to give you the backstory, here in this neighborhood, 6 years ago, as a resident, I did not feel that I had a place where my voice could be heard. This board had been taken over by people who owned most of the land but did not live here, and voted a lot in their own financial interest. And once we voted them out and changed the bylaws so that you can no longer vote in your own financial interest, we used code 3.96 to get rid of the people, the bad actors. It's very important. We have some music happening. It's very important to have the cleansing light of day. If a bad actor needs to do something, they need to do it in the open meetings and open records. And then we need to have some legal recourse if people do bad actions that are not in the cleansing light of day. So that's what I'm trying to explain, the technical, like when you say no open meetings, no open records, no grievances, that's what that means. So people could have continued to vote in their own financial interest and there would have been nothing to stop them. So it's a very difficult situation we're in, and the Civic Life, which is the department that oversees neighborhoods, is saying that neighborhoods do not represent their demographics. And so that's why we're talking about, are we renters, where we're living in the neighborhood, because we believe Goose Hollow does a great job of representing renters and low-income people and people of color. And we talk about it and think about it and take actions about it all the time. And so, sorry, that's in a nutshell.
Thank you for giving everybody that nutshell. So today I went down there and I provided a poster board of just said Goose Hollow. We are 80% renters, and on the Goose Hollow board we have 50% are renters, 50%, 40%.
Well, now that Mark is gone, that changes the. We need you back, Mark.
Forgive me, I got the that without that change. 50% low socioeconomic status, fixed income, and 20% of color on the board. And the room was packed. And there was a lot of opinions, but the public opinion was limited. And they did it by lottery system. So, and I randomly got selected. And I just stood up and gave the stats to everybody in the room about Goose Hollow's representation. And there was some great testimony, but like I said, I think the original agenda was only 5 minutes for public speaking. So I think really they weren't looking for public opinion, unfortunately. And I really had a hard time grasping the understanding of what they were trying to deliver to us. And the overall message of the director who would be in charge of the neighborhood associations or any organization that would like to speak out. And so it was really vague, and we had to leave halfway through to make it here tonight. So unfortunately, I don't have the recap of the remaining of the meeting, but we got it in a nutshell. It was very vague and very confusing, but if anyone would like to look at this paperwork, I have it here.
Were they going to go forward with their vote?
Not then, no. They were doing.
That was the original intent.
It was really.
As we went out, I think they said they were delaying it.
Okay, because no, they were originally supposed to have 7 meetings. And then because they didn't have the quorum last month, they scheduled meeting 8. And the original itinerary, at least that I received, said they were going to be voting on it sometime this evening.
Yeah, I was at the first one, the meeting number 7, where they had no quorum, thankfully, because they would have gone ahead and passed it. And because they had no quorum, they let everybody speak. So, although they only gave them 2 minutes, so 27 people spoke and spoke against the code change. So what you're saying is we're not going to act tonight.
I clarified that they said, well, we made some niggling little, I don't know if I have the floor, I don't wanna.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
But they said they made some little changes here and there, and they were kind of discussing it, and everybody had their head down, and they weren't really sharp. I mean, they didn't look like they're in ready mood to get in action.
And they did have a quorum of 12 people?
Yeah, they had a lot of people there around the desk. I
Okay.
don't know what their quorum actually is. But from reading the document, my personal opinion, it's just got holes all the way through it. It's not even actionable. I can't see how the commissioners could look at that and say that's, unless they've got a director that they want to appoint as their crony, a crony director, which would really, maybe that's the ultimate goal.
It was quite confusing, and we left midway through, and they brought out an easel with a drawing pad, and they were trying to drum up ideas and visions on the pad paper, and we thought, oh my gosh.
They don't have the experience, I just feel like people are staring at, there's no experienced writers or people, I was mentioning that to Tiffany, people who know how to put things together and work it.
Was Sue Gree there?
She's
She was, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have to, Andrea has to leave by 8. So we have 3 letters regarding this, our response to this code change. Eric, do you want to go first?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
We
The
have
3 letters, you're starting with your letter. The motion is, or the intention is to put those letters before the board to
Okay,
endorse them?
This one, I sent it to everybody on the board about a week ago, and it's really for NWNW. And this
Neighbors
is,
West, Northwest.
yes, and this is dealing with the Hillside Center that is, they're proposing.
No, sorry,
close-
we're on City Code 3.96.
I didn't send anything in for that.
Oh, you sent us, didn't you send us a letter from Neighbors West, Northwest?
Yeah, but that's what he sent us, but that's a letter that's already been approved by Neighbors West
Oh,
Northwest.
they don't need our vote on representing us?
I'll talk about that further when it comes to the NWNW
All
report.
right, so Eric, strike that. I thought we were voting on a letter that's already been
Oh,
sent
no.
out. Okay, so Roger, can you talk about your letter?
Yes, and for those of you out there, I sent this to the board. Here are copies of the letter.
I have to share.
I wanted in this to be concise and focus on 2 main matters. First, process. Second, the necessity of open meetings and open records laws and standards. Regarding the first, I wanted to note that first, OCL, Civic Office of Community and Civic Life, did not abide by the required public notice. No neighborhood associations apparently received notice. We have a listserv of people who are fighting the code change, and we received no indication that any neighborhood association, and Tracy was one of those who replied to it, that received notice of these meetings. Also, as far as we know, there was no regular public notice. I went online and checked the local events calendar, and this is what I found for the 26th of June. 2 meetings were noted. The East Portland Action Plan and Southwest Neighborhoods Incorporated. No mention of the Code Change Committee. And the second part is that I wanted to compare it to the public process when the code was last changed, and that was in 2005. I did this in my testimony at the 26th June meeting, and it's never, as far as I know, been answered by OCL. And then, again, the absolute necessity for open meetings, etc. You will notice, if any of you have read Udali's Facebook post following the Neighborhood Rocks meeting in which Michael spoke, that she never addresses this issue. I want to leave my remarks here because I think we probably will want to have some discussion of this.
We also need a second for the motion for, to accept the letter.
I'll second.
Cal got it first.
had to be there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and I want to make two changes to my text. One is that I want to put in the full name in the second paragraph, Guidelines, Review, Empowerment, and Assessment Task Force. So that's a correction. And I think we might want to change in the same sentence, that was completed in August 2005 after 3.5 years of study. Now, the NWNW letter, if you have read it, uses 4 years. I don't know which is correct. I was being conservative, going upon the history of ONA, ONI, and now OCO that is on the OCO website. And maybe Jerry can shed light on this as to whether it's 3.5 or 4. I just want to be accurate.
I'd like to remove that ampersand, which is an informal way of writing. And I don't.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Without looking at I've got copious notes on the phrase here, and I actually can't tell you without looking at those notes. It was a damn long time. But I'd like to point out that 3.96 doesn't do a whole lot of things that aren't already required in Oregon city statute. But it codifies them in a way that is understandable to anyone going for that piece of legislation in a way that is not possible by trying to draw together all of the pieces of policy and statute that otherwise apply. This strikes me as mostly a symbolic thing by whatever they're called now. And what it does is it discourages any competition to their selected in-crowd, which is profoundly undemocratic. So, this is an existential challenge to a geographically apportioned representative democracy. Michael's letter is incredibly on point. I also have my doubts that we're going to change the course of UDLE's committee, but it's worth making record right now, every place we can, because this is going to go to the council, and that's going to be right.
Right. All right, we have a lot to vote on. We've got a huge agenda tonight, so if we could just keep comments. Go ahead, Roger.
Okay, Jerry, just back to my point. Since the NWNW letter references 4 years, I suggest we change my text from 3.5 to 4, just so we are in unity with that text. Okay.
No objection to that whatsoever.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion of Roger's letter? And we'll keep discussing this because we're going to be voting on Michael's letter. So, any other discussion?
I just got a question. It's unfortunate. I don't know how many copies. Are there many copies out there?
Well, I've given them out.
Yeah, a lot of people have them.
Okay. Okay, so, okay, I was going to ask Roger if he'd paraphrase it, but that's
Well,
okay.
he already has.
Paraphrase what?
He's
the
already
letter.
paraphrased the letter, and they have it in front of them. Almost everyone has a copy.
Yeah, but I assume the board has read it because I sent it out to the board.
I read it, but I just wondering if it could be paraphrased for the audience, and didn't
I
notice.
believe he's already done that. Okay, so all in favor of Roger's letter, please raise your hand. It's unanimous, thank you. Okay, Michael's letter.
Okay, I'm sorry that I did not bring copies, but I want to just quickly run through it, because essentially what this letter does is it reviews the auditor's 2016 report and point by point what the auditor said, and then what the current code committee revision does in response to that. And to make that brief, it does almost the opposite. In many cases, it does the opposite. Quote, "The office needs a clear framework defining roles and responsibilities of city and community organizations and a focus on accountability. The current proposal is to loosen standards of responsibility, accountability, and transparency for neighborhood associations. 2, emerging issues such as using email to make board decisions or disclosing potential conflicts of interest have not been addressed in the standards. Again, these will be loosened in the standards, not tightened or not clarified. 3, lack of clear structure limits effectiveness. Defining the expectations and roles of neighborhood associations and all community groups could help clarify how groups can work together," unquote. Actually, what the current proposal would do is to further confuse those roles and commingle neighborhood associations with other kinds of unaccountable interests and organizations. 4, funding is not equitable. Office of Neighborhood Involvement grant funding for the district coalition offices based on a historical formula of unknown origin and so on. The current proposal would be to simply defund or to allow the defunding of neighborhood associations, which is not, it's sort of like, you know, it's not fair, you're getting too much, or I'm not getting enough, therefore everybody gets less. 5, residents report decreasing ability to impact public decisions. Both neighborhood associations and other community groups reported they felt their opinions were not being heard by City Hall. Again, let's make neighborhood associations less influential, have less of a voice in City Hall, and that will make everybody equally disenfranchised. 6, some neighborhood associations and district coalitions are working within the neighborhood association model while also expanding outreach to diverse communities. Yes, that's what we want to have more of. Why aren't they emphasizing that in the new standards? 7, in the 1970s, City Council created a system of neighborhood associations as the officially recognized channel for community involvement in city decision-making, and goes on. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but as her audit noted, this primarily geographic system has been regarded as a national model. It serves no one well to commingle this form of representation with other kinds of non-geographic groups who are less accountable. So in summary, the letter concludes that we all recognize that reforms are needed to make neighborhood associations more representative, more inclusive, and the way to do that is to strengthen, not weaken, the neighborhood association system. So that, in essence, is the letter.
Thank you, Michael. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And the reason we're doing 2 different letters is because they're both great, and also they attack the issues from different angles, and they give us, as a board, if we vote on all of this, the ability to say, we as a board have voted on X, Y, Z, and so nothing is left out.
So I can testify to this letter and say that the board authorized me to say this, rather than now I have to say that I'm doing this as a citizen.
I thought it was.
Question, go ahead, Chair.
I just wanted to make one comment. It was excellent, and I like this, like the way you put in to further serve the agendas of unaccountable special interest.
Absolutely.
I thought that was really terrific, and I
This is the danger.
keeping that in at all costs.
This is by making everybody less accountable, it makes those unaccountable interests more influential in ways that are unaccountable.
Roger?
Yeah, my question was, who is this going to be addressed to? Because it went to the auditor. Are we endorsing it to the auditor, or is it going to the city?
To the auditor and the city council, because I wrote individually to each city council member.
Okay, just
Daniel?
wanted to be clear on it.
Yeah, then thank you so much. Both of the letters are just perfect the way they are. The only comment I want to make is that I'm taking a statistics course at PCC, and I had the opportunity to read an article that was it was a newspaper article or a magazine article, I forget, but it was about tech workers and jobs increases like between 2010 or 2015, and two of the most significant things to this discussion is first that Portland actually rated towards the bottom of the list in terms of increase in tech jobs. And number 2 is that there seems to be a lot of evidence, particularly that a lot of the stuff we're fighting, that maybe the true intentions of the city is to increase, is to set up the whole city for tech workers and to get more tech jobs in the city.
That's a good point, and I think that we've talked about the economic inclusivity that covers that in the letter. I think the point that Michael made, I totally agree with, the geographic representation is the bedrock of democracy. So to say, and we have no other way that in Portland, our commissioners are elected at large, which means that they are not elected in a district. They represent generally the whole city. So our neighborhood association is our great geographic representation, and I believe it's the root of some democratic grassroots. So any other discussion of Michael's letter?
Yes, ma'am. One of the points that Michael makes, although he soft pedals it maybe too much, is that 3.96 requires city agencies to involve the public in at least two different places. In one place where it defines city agencies and their interest, in another place where it requires communication between city agencies and neighborhood associations. That's a piece that's been conveniently ignored by the city for years. As a piece that it strikes me as in the interest of some commissioners to see gone. And that's something I think we need to be aware of, that there may be interest on the council to hide this thing.
Good point.
I think that's a great point,
I just
yeah.
want to add, I mean, I heard Sucre at the City Club and then also on a radio interview. Again, with 3.96, it's just dealing with their code. Everything in the city will remain the same until they decide to change it. Well, whether this would then give them the impetus for that remains to be seen. So with what Jerry said, while it's very useful in a way, it's a little bit too early or soon, I think, to address that. With other city codes, because right now all that is going to remain the same. At
Well,
least from things that have been, publicly
They're not
stated.
changing it, 3.96.050, because that's the one that directs city agencies to, isn't it all of 3.96?
My understanding from doing reading as well as listening to Sucre and the like is that, like with the building, if they need to notify neighborhood associations or planning departments, those things are still gonna remain the same. That would then have to be changed on a department to department
And we've been told that
basis.
Sucre is already in discussions with the planning bureau on removing neighborhood
Well, as they say,
associations from
at the
that.
present time, it has not been removed. It's something for us to consider, but I don't know whether it needs to be addressed at the present moment. So, that's all.
All right, are we ready to vote on the letter? Cal?
So are you willing to take a friendly amendment to include what?
Well, I think I'm not rescinding the letter, we're just endorsing it so that I can testify to it. Because I can't actually change, we're not proposing to change the letter.
Okay,
Yeah.
never mind.
All right, all in favor of Michael's letter, please raise your hand. Unanimous, thank you. Okay, so next is Eric's motion to endorse the proposal to save Hillside Community Center.
Right, and what this is, and I sent it to the board, I guess it was about a week ago, this will be going out on Neighbors West Northwest letterhead. They're proposing to close the Hillside Center. And it's Dear Commissioner Fish, on behalf of the 11 member neighborhood associations in the Neighbors West Northwest Coalition, I am writing to let you know that this board is very disappointed with the decision you and other council members made to withdraw support for the city's programs at the Hillside Center. The center's programs served a large number of children, adults, and families across a wide geographic and socioeconomic range. The city's decision strikes us as poor judgment and very short-sighted. The board has voted to request that you and your staff urgently attempt to secure other tenants or organizations to continue to operate the center's preschool and other educational and recreational programs after the city's default and withdrawal this coming September. Time is very short. Respectfully, Christian Shorey, President of Neighbors West Northwest Coalition Board.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I would just add that Eric has explained this, but if you read the latest, yesterday's issue of Willamette Week, there's a full article about all of the community centers that are on the block, just like Hillside.
And what this does is really just for either myself or Roger, because I think tomorrow is the deadline for us to notify them that Goose Hollow supports this letter and, you know, to send it out under Northwest auspices.
Daniel?
I think at that Hillsdale Community Center is where I received my community garden training earlier.
Hillside Community Center is what we're talking about, which is in Northwest Portland.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
I'm
different
sorry.
one.
One comment. Goose Hollow and Northwest Portland are among the most profoundly underparked communities in the city. To close a community center under those circumstances is probably in the wrong direction for sending policy.
All right, all in favor of endorsing Eric's motion? Please raise your hand. Yeah, I saw it. Unanimous, thank you very much. Cal, do you want to talk about your motion for Goose Hollow?
Okay, did it pass unanimously?
Unanimous, yes.
Well, look, I did not intend to make a motion.
But one must be made, and I assumed it was you.
Well, that's what I was going
Okay.
to say, if you just give me a second. So, to promote discussion, I'll make a motion, somebody to second it, and then we can discuss it, and if you guys have passed it, here's the comment first. So I'll make the motion, somebody second it.
I'll second, Michael.
And is the motion to have Goose holidays
To
or to have a
appoint
committee?
Pastor
or-
Dan Hughes, Hues, and Melody Hughes
Now we can express it.
to chair Goose Holidays Committee.
That isn't what I understood.
That isn't, that what, well, you know, Roger's repeating what he understood from me earlier today, but that's fine. I'm making a motion so we can discuss it, and Michael seconded it. The motion is worded in the agenda.
Okay.
It doesn't
And I'd
have to be worded
suggest
that.
we start with Pastor Hughes.
All right. Okay, so we caught wind that Goose Holidays may not be happening this year.
Can you come on up to the mic,
Oh,
and you'll
microphone,
also be
yeah.
on the camera. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, you bet. All right. So we caught wind that maybe Goose Holidays wasn't going to be happening this year. And we really felt at Zion that Goose Holidays, the second year, was even an improvement on the first, and that it was really gaining momentum. We're really looking forward to this third year. And so I talked to my wife Melody a little bit, and we thought, well, what if Cal was kind of our contact last year. What if we called Cal and talked about this a little bit? Because we would love to contribute funds, to contribute energy and volunteers to make something like this happen. Because, like I said, it's important for us at Zion Cultivate Community to be part of Goose Hollow neighborhood. It's really important for us. In fact, this church has been here since 1889. The neighborhood grew up around it. It's been here a very long time, and so being involved in the neighborhood and loving our neighbors is significantly important to us. And so if we can love our neighbors in this way by helping facilitate and cultivate and continue Goose Holidays. So many neighborhoods around Portland have their own neighborhood festival, and it's fantastic. So I thought if we could continue it and lend a hand and other resources, that perhaps we can get something off the ground.
Thank you.
Good.
That's awesome. Can I say I'd be willing to help out with whatever.
That would be great, thank you.
I was also kind of disappointed that Goose Holidays wasn't gonna happen.
So you have
That's
a committee
wonderful.
member here.
Yeah, man, just to make a comment, but I think that we had sort of chatted informally about doing this, and a lot of people were kind of wiped out. People like Liz, who did a lot of it in the first year, and I helped, and then I was involved more in the second year, and so we were wondering whether we can really get enough energy and volunteers to have it happen again. And then there's a financial part of it, because I don't know I can't recall how much money we raised last year, but we raised a number of $1,000.
We spent $10,000.
In general, it's about to $10,000 is
What we spent?
is what the expense is. Last year, we did wind up making money, but that was primarily, I believe, because rather than having the picnic at Peregrine, they gave us the money instead, and that's really where our profit margin was.
But didn't we spend money on tents last year?
Well, yes, you
And
know,
I have a source that will donate them.
well, as I say, in that regard, it's relatively
We can make it
minimal.
cheaper.
I just look at it from the perspective, since I was involved both years as treasurer, and also the physical putting together of it and the time involved. My opinion, that for the 2 years that we put it on, it was done primarily by the board. That we really did not, we got some representation from people living here, and it was greatly appreciated. But overall, it was a lot of work for board members, in addition to what we do. And I just find, from my own perspective, the amount of meetings that I'm now going to, dealing with, 3.96 and safety and all these other things, I personally would not have the time that I did before to devote to it. So the only thing that I could suggest is if you would like to come up with some kind of plan or action plan, present it to us. I have all the forms and files on who donated and what everything encompassed as far as outlays. And then we can really sit down and plan for next year, because it does take about 9 months to put all this together.
Do you mind if I, okay?
Oh, no, go ahead.
So I totally get it, because 5% of the people at our church do 100% of the work. And people get burned out.
Send them over here.
Yeah. And so I understand that. I think that one thing I try to do at our church is when people have been volunteering a lot and are nearing the burnout stage, they become somebody who's advisory. Like, we take in from their experience, they can tell us what went well and what didn't from what they did, and be as active as much as they'd like to be, while some other people kind of take the leadership high energy roles in the planning process.
I want to let you know, here, I'll stand next to you
Sure.
for a comparison. I was your size before I got involved.
That's good. My doctor said I need to lose a couple lbs, so that's great.
Daniel?
I definitely have time to serve on the committee, just not chair it, but I can definitely volunteer on the committee like I did last year.
We
Thank you.
have a large committee already forming, so I
Yeah.
think this is good. You'll want to decide when you want to have meetings, and, we haven't even voted.
Well, did we have a second?
Did we have a
I
second?
give it.
Michael was a second.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor of, oh, sorry,
I
Cal?
think there's room for some more discussion. We don't meet in August. Do we not have some time for discussion?
No.
Further discussion?
Just,
Okay, because I had a question of Eric's. How much money do you recall being left in the kitty for?
Well, as I say, we now have approximately $5,200 in both savings and checking. And when we started the second year, we pretty much broke even, maybe about, we had $300 to $500 the first year. And we wound up about $3,000 ahead. But when I look at everything, where we were getting money coming in and where it was outgoing, it was primarily getting the money from Peregrine in lieu of our picnic that really made or break, so to speak. And as I say, we have about $5,200 in the till. Also, the odds of our getting, the first year we got a $1,500 grant from Neighbors West Northwest. Last year we got a $2,000 grant, and they said we were not going to be getting any more of that particular grant money. So that would have to be made up as well.
And one of the big contributors last year was BMW.
BMW,
And also the MAC.
Yeah, so, and I assume a lot of these organizations would still get involved. But it's really, we're working pretty close to really the break-even point at this time.
Yeah, since he brought up Peregrine, and we don't meet in August, I thought I better ask the question, are we having a picnic?
I have to follow up on that, so that's my bad. So, Cal, are you withdrawing your motion? You sound reluctant now.
I'm not withdrawing the motion by any, I'm withdrawing my emotion, but not my motion.
Got it. Okay, all in favor of Cal's motion, please raise your hand. Unanimous, thank you.
No, I'm abstaining.
You're abstaining, I didn't see
Yes.
you, sorry.
Yeah, I will abstain also.
Roger and Eric are abstaining.
I don't know how the action plan is put in place, given we're not meeting in August. That's, it'd be nice to have some way of addressing that.
We'll have to send out a notice through the entire neighborhood listserv of when the meeting is gonna occur and see who shows up and how energetic the people are who show up. I mean, that's all we have.
Is there a way to make a go, no-go decision based on some interim?
I think we should meet as soon as
The
possible.
committee could do that.
The committee should meet as soon as possible. The committee will see how many people show up and how much energy they have and what they think they can accomplish.
And what the potential funding sources are. I mean, we have potentially NW grant, is that right? No.
So why don't you look at your calendar and see what you think the first meeting should be, if you could tell us before you leave tonight. And maybe host it at your church, so we can all come and visit the.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so, I have,
Can I ask you another question? Is Pastor Hughes being nominated as the leader of this effort?
that is what the motion reads, a motion
Is
for
that what
Pastor
it reads?
Hughes
I don't have my glasses.
and wife Melody to chair Goose Hollow Days Committee. That's what the motion
Okay.
says on there. Okay, so I have an addition.
One other point of information, somebody from the board will have to serve on the committee.
I will be on the committee.
That's fine.
And Andrea will be on the committee. We're good. Okay, so I need to add a motion, or add a discussion for Clean Air Portland that has come to us before and talked to us about the amazing amount of diesel trucks that come through the area. We have the 3 largest truck fleets with unfiltered diesel that are causing massive amounts of air pollution. We have the oil and gas tank farms, the Brooklyn rail yard, and they are seeking, they have 65 neighborhoods and 20 churches who are signing joint letters about the air pollution that we're all struggling with and efforts to reduce that air pollution. So they've requested of whether or not we would like to join them and be one of those neighborhoods in the Clean Air Portland Coalition. I can't make a motion because I'm chairing the committee.
What, is there something that we got sent about this?
They have some letters that they're getting together, but they haven't sent the final thing out.
Okay.
But this is to say we're joining in this coalition to work to get, because what the old diesel trucks are being dumped on this area and trying to find a way to get cleaner air in this area. And they believe that the state legislative actions are not happening quickly enough and that Portland is struggling under some of the dirtiest air in the entire state because of these things.
Yeah, I remember when they presented to us. I'll be happy to make that motion.
Anybody second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Michael makes the motion, Andrea seconds.
Tracy, I've got a couple of comments. One is that Goose Hollow sits at the bottom of the Tualatin Ridge. There, the air that comes down the Columbia Gorge hits the Tualatin Ridge and rises. It dumps a significant amount of silt in Goose Hollow. That silt is not necessarily the cleanest or most healthy stuff in the world. Back in the day, there used to be an air monitoring station on Burnside, around Kent. That's been closed for a number of years, but that station reported some of the worst air quality in the metropolitan area, including in some of our industrial areas. So, yeah, we have a stake in this. I wonder what the timeline is that's involved in
Clean Air, Portland.
Clean Air Portland, that's a little bit vague, well, but what they're looking for is, do we want to join in the coalition? Do we want to be one of the 65? We would be neighborhood number 66, so that's what they're looking
I can't think of anything negative.
for. I can't. Okay, we have so much more on the agenda, so Roger, did you have a comment?
Mark has his hand up.
Yeah, I'll just make a comment. I know I'm the only one in the room that's gonna say this, and I'm probably the only one in the whole state of Oregon. But these people are freaking wingnuts, okay? I'm the only federally qualified diesel technician and diesel operator, probably in Goose Hollow, and I know that this is complete horse poo, all right? These detectors that, well, first of all, they talked to us, when I was on the board, they talked to us like a year and a half ago, and they said the state already has a plan to phase out these diesel engines on the older trucks. You cannot force these truckers to change engines. They're barely making a living right now on their own, and you're gonna force them to buy new engines for the trucks. That's crap, okay? And they came about a couple months ago when I was still on the board, and they talked about these detectors. But it sounded to me like these detectors, somebody was making on the other side of the river in their garage, okay? And where they, you know, the price that we voted for was different. I didn't vote for it, but I voted no. But the price was different than what they told us later. And I don't have any idea how they're calibrating these detectors. Are they certified? Are they calibrated? Anyway, I would urge the board to vote no on this garbage. Now, I know you're all gonna vote yes unanimously, but I'm just on the record saying this is total crap.
So, and
I know, and believe me, I was in a metal tube underwater breathing diesel exhaust for 25 years, and I'm freaking still alive. Okay, I breathed a whole lot more diesel exhaust than you guys ever dreamed about.
So I just
Anyway,
want
that's
to.
just one man's.
Duly noted.
Duly noted. Washington and California have both voted for diesel improvements to diesel trucks, and we are getting dumped with all their old trucks. But go ahead.
That's about what I was gonna say. I've been affiliated with cleanairportland.org for the last few years in self-defense. They opened my eyes to diesel causes cancer and heart disease, and our whole county is really in danger. In the whole country. And I know this is not fun, that Greg, the director of that, he has taken EPA statistics and he is documenting, in the process now of documenting every single neighborhood in Portland as far as what pollutants are in the air. And I know this is not bunk. I actually had him come to my house and offer to put a diesel monitor in my house. I tested clean because I was on the 5th floor, but there's real science behind this. He brought $30,000 worth of equipment to my house or my apartment, and sorry I'm a newbie, but
Thank you for
air
sharing.
is my thing.
All right. Roger, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I'm not going to vote no, Mark.
No,
However,
we're all gonna vote for it, I know.
no, I am not. And the reason I'm not is simply that it was not on the agenda, and I haven't seen the background on which everybody else is going to vote. And I am not comfortable ever with voting in that way, so I'm going to abstain.
Any other comments before we vote?
I have a question. Are there metrics and stuff that you guys base your decision off of?
So this Clean Air Portland has presented to us twice, and they brought the information to the meetings and
Is
talked
that
about.
available?
Yeah, it's all on their website. Yeah, it's all.
I'm more comfortable voting yes because we've already considered a number of these issues. I've taken Mark's point of view into account, and I still think clean air is a pretty good idea, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Daniel?
So,
All I was gonna say is I concur with Jerry Salomon that I'd like to, that I don't see anything negative. I like to breathe.
All right. All in favor of joining in the 65 neighborhoods supporting Clean Air Portland on Portland's Air, please raise your hand. One, hang on, I can't see everybody. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, the motion passes. Well, who abstains?
I'm abstaining.
Jerry, Roger, Tiffany, Eric abstain. And,
6, yes, of course, abstentions,
right, the motion passes. So next on the agenda is the net meter revenue policy review. So these folks are saying, you know, we have these policies about the revenue from meters. Supposedly Goose Hollow should have been seeing some of the revenue. We have no idea the story behind that. So we need somebody going to a couple of meetings. I sent this out on email to the board. Do we have a volunteer who will represent Goose Hollow at those meetings? There are 2 meetings that you need to attend.
I'm not volunteering, I just want to note that you sent it out on email to the board, but I'm not on the board email list, so I never got it.
I've asked them twice to correct that. So,
thank you.
Anybody want to volunteer to go talk about the net meter revenue policy review?
I think you should give the 2 dates for the meetings that are still open.
August 14th and September 25th.
And I think they also had requested that whoever goes would be able to go to the 2 remaining meetings. And I'm going to be out of town at the September meeting.
So will I.
I'm out of town both meetings.
I did have a question. From reading the information, it indicated that we had gotten some monies from this in the past.
I've never heard of that.
Okay. And as I had mentioned to you earlier, with all the construction that's going to be going on in the metered zone, actually starting now and probably continuing for the next 2 to 3 years, I think the amount of revenue that they'd be generating is probably going to be cut either 40 to 50% because of the construction. So I don't know if it's really that important or paramount an issue for us. We do not make any determinations, from what I understand, as far as pricing on the meters.
Jerry, is there any chance you could go August 14th, September 25th?
There is a chance. But I do have, August 24th?
5th.
25th.
August 14th, September 25th, sorry.
At 4 p.m. both times. Yeah.
I'm out of town on the 14th.
Can you take the 25th?
I'm in nationals.
I can do August 14th. Who can take September 25th?
September
September 25th. August 14th, September 25th.
I'm available for September 25th.
All right, so you and me, Jerry. So
Okay.
that one, September 25th, 4 p.m. I'll send you the info. All right.
The lady that was the manager of that program for many years, Nancy Rice, was one of my colleagues and the planning bureau in the 80s. So
All right.
he has some pretty good background.
So I have to take off, so I'm going to hand the meeting chairing over to Michael. And Michael, just a reminder that we're adding PDOT right after Hamilton Arms.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the Hamilton Arms condo letter to the mayor protesting serious public safety problems. Who is going to present that?
I can speak on that
Okay,
behalf.
go ahead.
Right.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm going to share to you a letter from some neighbors just down the road from us, addressed to Mayor Ted Wheeler and City Council members on July 4th of this year. Dear Mayor Wheeler and City Council members, a highly sensitive photograph is attached to this communication for purposes of illustrating the seriousness of this issue. The photos are not intended for public release. Hamilton Arms Condominium consists of 54 residence units located at 709 Southwest 16th Avenue between Morrison and Yam Hill Streets. We are requesting immediate assistance from the city to resolve health, safety, and nuisance issues that are impacting our neighborhood. On July 3rd, we had multiple reports of a foul odor emanating from the mini camp that was set up on the corner of 16th and Morrison, just a few feet from our residents' windows, where a man in a wheelchair had been living for 5 days. Sadly, it was reported that the man died there on the sidewalk later in the day. As his lifeless body was taken away, his wheelchair and his possessions and his trash and his body fluids remained on the sidewalk. It was not until our management company took action that a hazardous material response team came out and dispatched from the city hours later to clean the area. This tragic outcome illustrates just how bad the overall situation is. Our neighborhood is being negatively impacted by, number one, camping, sleeping, loitering on the city of Portland sidewalks that border our property and the immediate neighborhood area, often obstructing passage. Number two, exposure to human and other waste, including some requiring hazmat removal. 3, encounters with individuals who appear to be under the influence of alcohol or controlled substances and whose behaviors can feel threatening. Number 4, incidences of yelling and fighting during the night and early hours of the morning. We have experienced the following specific incidences directly affecting our property and our residents. Number 1, residents report safety concerns. 2, human waste on the entryways to the steps to the building. 3, graffiti on our building and our fences. 4, my phone just shut off. Thank you very much.
Okay, right there.
Yep. Number 4, exterior laundry vent was broken off. 5, exterior environment vandalized with plants and flowers torn out of boxes that are attached to the front of our building. Our homeowners association has taken a number of steps to address these issues. Number 1, informed our residents about safety precautions. Number 2, no trespassing signs were posted. 3, reinforced entry gate to deter potential trespassers. 4, promptly removed the graffiti. 5, residents or surrounding neighbors have made numerous reports to the city police department and the city's one point of contact website to inform them on concerning issues and incidences. Despite our many efforts to appropriately report these incidences and remediate the issues, the problems continue. Our HOA is also impacted by the increased cost in maintenance and janitorial services to respond to these city issues that are affecting our property. We request to meet with you and your designated staff to discuss concrete steps that the city will be addressing for these immediate issues. Please contact us and schedule a meeting. So I reached out to these people personally, and I went down to their neighborhood. I took pictures of the homeless encampment. I contacted the city, as well as I helped arrange a meeting with Commissioner Sharon Mirren for District 1. She came down to the neighborhood. I unfortunately couldn't get no one in this area to represent on their behalf. I couldn't believe it. I contacted 4 people, and I did it for them. And I talked to Commissioner Mirren about this, and I said this is unacceptable. In addition to this, I brought the other surrounding neighborhoods around this issue too, so she could hear not only what's happening on their street, but what's happening on Mill Street, just down the street. Because just recently they went through a really, really hard time calling the police up to 4 times a day, fires in the tunnel, threatening behaviors, unwanted people in their properties as well, in addition to Upper Broadway area, just above PSU. So we all were in a room together, so she would address these issues. So thankfully this letter got her attention, and so I'll follow up with her in terms of what she plans to do with this issue. And any questions?
Did they get a response from the mayor, as far as you know?
Great question. They didn't, but they got Commissioner Mirren's attention. So That's, but I have to say though, in this area in the last year and a half, I haven't seen any commissioners come down to our location and actually physically address the concerns, so I commend her. So that's a good start. And I talked to her and said, what are you gonna do about recognizing the other issues and maybe bringing in your other commissioners to address our problems as well. So we'll see. It's a start.
So you're just asking us to endorse this, is that right? Is that what the motion is?
No, that was
Is it like an informative?
I thought this was, she was just
Oh,
informing us, yeah.
that's fine, I wasn't understanding. But I do want to say, and I get this from Eric actually, that one of the things that seems to be always omitted from the stories about you all is that the law says that there is no camping on ODOT property. No reporter says that.
The other thing I would just like to add, and it kind of relates to 3.96, but by getting a letter like this, where, you know, they're asking the neighborhood association to help out, we are just an advisory board. That doesn't mean we cannot speak, you know, with the strength of the board, but we really have no power at all. And that's one of the things that have been stated about the neighborhood association, the loss of power. Well, it's kind of hard to lose power when you really don't have any. The only thing that we really have control over, and it all depends on the neighborhood, is really on the parking permit program. And anything over the minimum, which is now $75, we can charge more if we choose to, and that money then stays within our community to get people out of their cars. As an example, you know, we'll buy them a bike pass or a bus pass. But, you know, the neighborhood association, really, we have influence and we can speak representing the neighborhood, but we have no power to really do anything. And so I just want to make that clear, because there seems to be a lot more contentious issues coming up, and I'll deal with one later on. And, you know, it's fine to come to us, but one of the things that the Rose Lady has done is she's been incredibly proactive and has actually reached out and spoken to different peoples in authority. Normally, and I tell this to everyone as well, if you call the non-emergency number, everything is done, it's a numbers game. So when you have homeless people, if you call, all your neighbors call, every day you call, that's one complaint. So you can call once a day, 5 times a day, have your neighbors call, and as that adds up, that's how the police and the city makes their determination on when they're gonna act. In the case of what was going on on Gander Ridge, was because of the fires and the attempted break-ins, and when the police did some kind of investigation, they realized this had the potential to become a high crime area. And I think that's one reason.
Actually, they deemed it a hot spot, and so they gave us a designated district attorney just for the property crimes and active DA cases, so we are credible now.
What's the difference between a hot spot and a high crime area?
Thank you.
So I mean, it really comes down to everyone being either proactive or reactive. And really, whether it's the non-emergency number or the one point of contact on your phone. And
is it fair to say, I don't know if you've watched the KGW News or the Oregonian, where our commissioner Hardesty is outraged by the boulders that were placed at Southwest 14th Avenue. Yeah, and I just coming here, I was approached by KGW wanting to know how I felt about that, because she did not address our neighborhood's crime and safety concerns. She overrode that with her outrage that the boulders had displaced houseless people, but she didn't recognize the fact that we testified to her with our community about needing help from her, and she never once reached out to ODOT or anybody else in a powerful position to help our community. And now we finally got relief from the boulders, and our neighbors are able to feel a little bit safer in their properties. And this is an area of low socioeconomic status, fixed incomes by the freeway, so this is a vulnerable population. So the fact that she never came down to our location to physically look at our situation or talk to any of the people that are facing these struggles every single day for crime and safety, and then she comes out and points her finger at ODOT and says, you know, I'm outraged with you.
well, just to add as a kind of a corollary, in Oregon, you're allowed to hitchhike along the freeway entrance. Coming from California, you're not allowed to, but here in Oregon, you're allowed to hitchhike along the freeway entrance. However, you've never been allowed to be camping. If you notice, and I've only been here 6 years, but I know driving through here 20, 30 years ago, they would have signs up that say, you know, no camping allowed or no entry. So it's ODOT property, it's always been that way. The one thing they might have added is now it's in Spanish as well. But, you know, it's kind of, yeah, so it's kind of disingenuous of Hardesty to take this attitude. And if anything, you go after ODOT if you think they were in error, not the individuals who were fearful or called for the city to take action.
The only set of people who came down to our location was ODOT, and they went through every area looking at safety concerns and reinforcing fence and recognizing there was a liability to the safety of the campers and the people living in the community.
In other words, theirs was a professional attitude and hers was a political attitude. Well, I'll say that. You don't have to say that.
I would welcome her to come down to our neighborhood and maybe off of 16th right here and address the dead body situation.
Go back to the country you came from. No, excuse me. I'm carried away.
So Tiffany, just to be clear, you're not putting a motion forward?
No.
Okay.
Just a
So I'm aware that it's 8:20 and we want to move through a number of other things, including our PBOT guest who is here. Daniel, did you have a quick comment?
Just a quick comment. What's disturbing me in all of these cases, there seems to be sort of a pattern. There seems to be a pattern is that we seem to be becoming invisible, and we need to become we're becoming invisible. That which is the most disturbing and scary. And we need to find a way. We need to find a way to address this whole issue of becoming invisible and becoming visible.
Daniel, what do you mean by invisible?
What I mean by invisible is that we're being silenced, that we're not, that the media just like what you just said with that they're not reporting, and that they're really pitting two vulnerable populations against another. Is that we're dealing with this like post-truth phenomena where we're as accepted as truth as the media image.
Disenfranchised, essentially. And this goes to the thing about the neighborhood associations and the changes. I just want to briefly comment on something you said, Eric. I think that they would allege that we have power because we have the ability to get development notices and make appeals, and we get the funding and we get the representation. But the fact of the matter...
Just to let you know, really, the only power, if you want to call it that a neighborhood association has, is we have the right to appeal at no cost a decision in the planning department.
Yeah.
If it then goes to LUBA.
Right. And we are required to be notified.
Then we have to hire an attorney. So really, you know, if you want to call it power, it's pretty minimal. Or pretty
no, but I think the bigger point, just a second, Roger, I'll just conclude my thought, is that in effect, our power, quote unquote, if you want to call it that, is that we have a form of formally recognized representation. And essentially what they're saying is we're going to pull that from everybody, and that way we're going to equalize the city, which we're disenfranchising everyone, as you say. Roger?
Yeah, I would agree with Eric. The only power we have is in the area parking permit program and the LUBA appeal, which is kind of a strange way of saying power. Really, all we have is a voice, and what they want to do is mute our voice.
Yes.
That's what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah, no, we need to be very clear about that.
Michael?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
I
Jerry.
kind of have to disagree, though. When the neighborhood association or any one of us addresses members of the council, we get a little bit higher place on the tree to claw.
That's the representation, right? We're acknowledged as having some voice that represents other people.
The pity of the plight of the neighborhood association program right now is that there are some neighborhood associations that have ceded that power. And that's regrettable. And it reflects actually a lack of leadership in the opposite neighborhood associations as it existed up until now.
Right, and that suggests that we need to have a better neighborhood associations and strengthen the system, not dismantle it. Okay, that's probably enough on that topic. And I know Scott has been very patient from Peabody. Would you mind speaking into the mic for us, and thank you.
Let me give you some of these. Can you pass a few of these down? Do you mind passing it? And then if you all want to take a look, I have plenty of copies for everybody if you don't mind passing.
Well, thanks for having me, Michael. I appreciate you inviting me. I contacted Michael, I don't know, a month or two ago about presenting on this project that I'm delivering, the Southwest Northwest 20th Avenue Neighborhood Bikeway. It started off as a bike and pedestrian improvement project on 20th Avenue, but in doing a lot of public outreach and getting feedback, particularly on our from some of the committees for Goose Hollow, the Transportation Committee and the Land Use and Planning, we learned pretty quickly that people don't really want to bike and walk on 20th Avenue in Goose Hollow because of the topography.
I'm a biker, I know.
So we have, we went through the Central City in Motion planning process that looked at a number of transit, pedestrian, and bicycle improvement projects in the Central City. And we came up with an alignment, a new alignment for this project in Goose Hollow. If you go to the I've only got a few minutes, so if you go to this second page, backside of the first page, we're in phase 2 now, by the way, so phase 1 is done. Phase 1 was in Northwest. That alignment was outside of the Central City in Motion process. We're in phase 2, we're in Goose Hollow. We're looking at using Southwest, from south to north, we're looking at using Southwest 18th from Southwest Mill Street Terrace to Clay or Columbia to come down and cross over to get to 17th and lead you up to Lincoln's campus. So that would be a shared street environment, what we call a neighborhood greenway. That essentially means bikes and cars are sharing the street. They're low speed, low car volume environments where bikes and pedestrians can share the street. We basically put down some markings on the pavement, we do some signage. Brings you to the doorstep of Lincoln's redevelopment where they're gonna add a nice pedestrian path through the campus at 17th. On the other side of Lincoln's campus after it develops, we'll have bike lanes on Southwest 16th and 17th because it's a couplet. So we'll be removing a travel lane on each of those streets between Salmon and Alder. They're pretty low volume streets. They're actually quite overbuilt. You've got 2 lanes really going in either direction for a very little amount of traffic. So they've got plenty of capacity to handle the current amount of cars and then be able to add bicycle facilities, which by the way can be used for scooters and things like that to try to get them off the sidewalk. So that's another thing that we're looking to do. And then Southwest Alder will be the connection from 17th and 16th across Burnside, where we're currently in construction. I'm sure you've seen it, Burnside at 18th and 19th. There's a lot going on there. There's new signals coming. There's new pedestrian crossings, there's new bike lanes. So that's all being delivered, and this project that I'm here presenting about today that we're looking to build this coming spring will connect to that project, get you across Burnside and over to the forthcoming Flanders Bike and Pedestrian Way, which has a new crossing across the freeway, and then connect you up to the 20th Avenue Neighborhood Greenway in Northwest. So that's kind of the connection that we've built. Now, of course, we still have the 20th Avenue ability, people can bike and walk on it. We're just not adding really too many amenities except on 20th Avenue in the southern portion where the hill goes down towards Jefferson. We added some speed bumps already for to improve traffic speeds in that area.
Are those already there?
The bumps are in, yeah. So we're kind of picking things off as we go along in this project. So I'll just cap up real quick and then I'll take some questions. What's coming in the spring are Sharrow pavement markings, essentially a shared street, bike and car environment on 18th and 17th up to Lincoln's campus. And then 16th and 17th will have bike lanes to Alder. Alder will have a 2-way, what we call a cycle track, but it'll have 2-way bike facilities on one side of the street that will connect to 18th across to Burnside.
But Alder will remain one.
Alder will
one
remain,
way
yep,
going
exactly.
east.
Alder, for cars.
For
Alder,
cars.
yes, Alder will
Of course,
remain one way for cars going eastbound, and it'll be two-way just for that one block from 16th
Yeah.
to 17th to connect up to the other
I
facilities.
use that all the time.
Okay.
Yes, going up Alder. Yeah.
Yep. Going west? What are you going on the sidewalk?
east.
Oh, going
Going
east.
east.
Okay, good. Don't go west on Alder.
No,
Okay,
no.
good.
I just take Everett. I don't-
Well, I go Everett too, but depending on where I'm going.
Yeah, that's
There's,
true.
there's a few questions down here.
You mentioned something about the scooters. Could you talk a little bit more about the scooters, which tend to be the bane of everyone's existence?
Sure, but what we're finding is that when we have good on-street bicycle facilities, the scooters use those, and when we don't have that, the scooters use the sidewalk. So when we build bike lanes, good neighborhood greenways, good, safe, low volume, low speed, shared environments for bikes and cars, the scooters will ride on those. And if we don't have those things, they're on the sidewalk. So, we really think that by building more of this kind of infrastructure that primarily we've thought about for bicycles will actually help put scooters back on the street where we would like to see them.
I think this is terrific. What is the timeline for this?
Spring.
Until?
It will be a pretty quick project because it's primarily pavement striping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it should be pretty quick. There's some construction, as you know, in the area that might mean a block or two may not be able to be constructed in spring. And we'll have to ask the developer when they finish the construction and the closing of the street or a parking lane to then do the striping. But the work that PBOT will be doing will be done in spring.
Actually, I thought about Festival Street is on the 17th, between Handhill and James.
No, we haven't thought about a festival street there. I think,
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you guys oversee what's happening with scooters and bicycles?
Well,
Obeying the law?
PBOT's not in the enforcement agency. We do have regulatory on people getting permits. So, for example, scooters are privately owned and an operated company, so they have to get a permit through PBOT's regulatory division. But we don't do enforcement, that's the police bureau. So as far as bicycles go, PBOT's not involved in enforcement, but we do consider ourselves, we call it the 6 E's, and they include like engineering and education and enforcement, and then there's 3 others that I'm forgetting right now, which my colleagues they'd be very upset with me. This isn't really on camera, right? But we consider ourselves to be 2 of the very important E's, the education and the engineering. So this is an engineering project, we have education, but the E of enforcement is the police bureau.
I'm not as familiar with this area right here,
Mhm.
because I don't take it often, but
Sure.
are businesses impacted by this?
Um,
Businesses that require a vehicle to get towards them, or parking or anything?
There will be a little bit of parking removal on Alder, but that's about it.
Okay, so
yeah.
no businesses are impacted?
I think businesses should be impacted positively, but yeah, I think that should be it. Mhm.
So you're not quite sure if a business will be impacted or not?
Well, we've done a lot of outreach and we've talked to a lot of the businesses, and so, generally speaking, everybody is, on board. They're familiar with the project, yeah.
A question I have is pertaining to Lincoln High School
Mm-hmm.
on here.
Yep.
What street is that on the map?
Well, it's 17th. Lincoln's proposal shows a public thoroughfare on 17th for people to walk through, essentially lining up with 17th, where their new high school will be on 17th, and then there'll be like a pedestrian path and plaza, and then the field will go to the
Well, I
east.
find it interesting, when we had last month, Lincoln High School review,
Mm-hmm.
my understanding is that's gonna be closed during school hours.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's, I
I
think.
mean, I know that there's been
Yeah.
a continuing contentious thing between PBOT and PPS.
Sure.
I think they should lock you guys in a room without any bathroom breaks.
Well, they get paid more, there's people that get paid more at PBOT than I do to work those things out, but my job is to deliver a bike project that would make the most sense and that takes into account public feedback.
Again, I mean, I
Yeah.
understand why it would be
Sure.
there, but if it's gonna be closed from, let's say, 8 AM
Mhm.
till 4 PM or 5 PM, what's the point? You're gonna have to go around.
Sure, well, at the very least, we'll deliver people right to Lincoln High School, which is an important destination in the community. We're connecting to a two-way bike facility on Southwest Salmon, so that's a good connection as well. And if, Portland Public gets their way and they close the gates, despite what the comprehensive plan clearly lays out, that there should be connectivity actually on 16th and 17th through your neighborhood for people to walk through, then I guess PBOT will have to go back to the drawing board. I don't know if that'll be my project, but my project is gonna take it right up to 17th,
If
and then
nothing else, at least you have a heads up on what potentially might be occurring.
my head's up.
Okay.
Thank you.
If the pass-through on Lincoln High School, well, that's closed during the day, that's another issue, but is there gonna be blocks to prevent people from biking through and scootering through? If it's just a walkway, it should be just a walkway.
Sure, so, I mean, it's private property, and then what I think is the most likely thing to happen is that there would be a public easement. We have these in lots of places, particularly in the Pearl, where there's private property, but public easements for people to walk or bicycle through, and that you can, the private property and the Bureau work out how the easement works. So, whether Portland Public, let's just say Portland Public allows a public easement and at certain hours, and they say, look, we want people to dismount and walk their bike through here, that, that's a negotiating point with the Bureau of Transportation, and we could say.
If it's a pedestrian walkway, it's just like down on the waterfront.
Yeah.
Bicycles and scooters can overpower walkers.
Sure, yeah, so I mean, that would be part, yeah, absolutely, yeah, so that would be part of the public easement, discussion, yeah.
Sorry, I believe 16th and 17th are both still dedicated rights of way. And they both have utilities underneath of them, and I don't believe they can be vacated. So.
That may well be the case, but.
Who's giving the easement to whom?
Again, that is, those are conversations and questions that go above my pay grade. My job is to deliver these bike connections up to the place where they make the most sense, and then hopefully, the commissioner and the director can work this out.
Or they don't know.
Sure, so it's very clear to PBOT leadership that this is an important connection at Lincoln, and I mean, that's why it's in the comprehensive plan, that as a connection.
So please continue making those points.
I will.
Question? So if I understand this correctly, this would also help with some of the pedestrian issues crossing Burnside, like around Fred Meyer's, and where there's been accident, pedestrians have gotten hit and stuff?
My project does not, but there is another project that mine connects to that's building better pedestrian facilities across 18th and 19th. And then we also have funded a new traffic signal primarily for pedestrians at 20th Place, the other side of Fred Meyer's, to help get across Burnside. So there's lots of pedestrian improvements coming across Burnside in the either very immediate future or in the next year or two.
Has PBOT decided whether they're going to close 20th or Morrison?
Right, well, I think that's still up for discussion. We're still waiting for the funding from ODOT from when I came to see you guys 18 months ago. Yeah, so I think we're back, I think from when the feedback I got from your committee that day was there was interest in public plazas, but maybe not in that space. And so I think we're going back to our initial plan, which was to kind of just close that one leg and not close the whole leg there at Morrison.
Right, but close the piece between 20th Place and Burnside, or close the piece of 20th Place between Morrison and Burnside?
I can't remember off the top of my head. The project is gone. The project has gone to somebody else who's wrangling with a bunch of ODOT projects all at once.
Can you provide us with
Sure. Yeah.
who that is?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I'm just remind everybody that it's getting quite late, so let's try.
I'm just going to say just
wrap
one
up.
more
Yeah, go
quick
ahead.
thing,
No,
which
I don't
is
want to cut anybody off, but I just want to remind you all it's almost 8:40.
I think you guys are probably ready to go to the next one, but I'm very happy to discuss this. We're moving this project pretty quickly since we've got our construction in the spring. But if there's feedback in particular, please feel free to give me a call, or if there's some other kind of place for a presentation, just let me know. Okay,
Terrific.
thanks.
Thank you, Scott, yeah, much appreciated. Okay, moving on, let's try to get through these other things. So Gander Ridge, I think we've pretty well covered that, haven't we? Is there anything else to be discussed on that?
I don't think so.
Seeing no other comment, let's move on to the food carts, and I think that was actually Tracy's item, wasn't it? I believe that's actually been superseded by some of the recent negotiations that
I can speak on that behalf, actually, if you want me to.
Yeah. Okay, go
You
ahead.
know Tracy. I was working with Tracy on the food carts ideas because I know of a manager who could manage the pods in these locations, as well as my relationships with ODOT, and so Tracy and I corresponded a lot. But I was working with the Friends of the Green Loop, who was raising money to actually help those food carts establish a new location, raising money to provide electrical, water, and maybe a cement pad, like a impermeable surface, so that they can stay to code. And they were looking for the location, and so just, I think a couple days ago, they finally arrived at their location, but we were really, really hoping that they would choose the ODOT locations around Lincoln High School and PSU, up 13th all the way to Southwest Montgomery, but they chose not to take that location. So I was slightly bummed. Yeah.
Is this the group then that went to the Pearl, or these are different food carts?
So don't quote me, but I think it's about 46 food cart pods, and the Friends of the Green Loop physically had them removed with tow trucks from that location to the U.S. Post Office over by Old Town Chinatown area.
Right.
To store them until they could find a permanent location for them, but they were struggling with the electrical and the water and the cement and the location too, because there was a lot of up in the air of, well, if we put these food carts here or there, what kind of problems it's gonna cause. But Ankeny Square over by O'Brien was their final location, but they were considering our locations by Lincoln as well. So because ODOT gave up certain areas, like 2, maybe 3 locations that were leasable to these food carts, but they got the opportunity to look at other places and they chose not to take these. So, but there are other food carts out there that could still go to our locations around Lincoln to kind of reactivate our community. But we're back to the drawing board, because I asked the Friends of the Green Loop, I said, well, the money that you've raised, can we help those other food carts reestablish over in our spot too? And they said, no, the money's gonna stay with the original pod of maybe 30. So 30 of them probably were very lucky and fortunate to get the, yes.
So question, are they trying to move all the food carts into one location?
They were trying
or
that.
maybe multiple locations?
They were trying that because the pod felt they were stronger in a bigger group.
Right.
And unfortunately, 30 of them made to that location. So there are a few stragglers that didn't make the cut. And so Tracy and I were talking that maybe we could try to capture the attention of those other carts and bring them this way, but we have to go to the drawing board and raise money since the pool of money is not being shared. Rightfully so, though. I mean, the Friends of the Green Loop, they raise the money and they can do it as they wish.
Okay, let's move on then, unless there's any other quick comments on that. Please let me know, or let the board know if you've had emails exchanged this month on board business. Anyone?
Yes, I did. I got a letter from Mark Nyberg regarding actually himself in a Pilates studio on Southwest 15th and Adler, and they were expressing concern about the meters, that they're 4-hour meters, but I guess a lot of people are stuffing the meters, I guess maybe with the new app, and are staying for 8 hours or longer. So I went down actually on a Saturday, and then I went into his office on Monday, July 1st, and I didn't see a problem. There were tons of parking. He said it comes up from time to time. I also discussed with him with all the construction that's going on in the area right now, along Burnside, the 7-story building, what's going on with the park blocks and the potential at the Artist Repertory Theater, he ain't seen nothing yet. And that perhaps some of the construction workers are the ones that are parking there long-term. I did tell him that what he would need to do, again, we have no authority to really do anything, to get in touch with PBOT, and if he could document that these vehicles are overstaying the 4 hours, perhaps they can send out more meter people to ticket them. And so, he appreciated my coming by, but again, with all the construction that's planned for the next 2 to 3 years in that area, it's going to be not only difficult to find a place to park, it's going to be very difficult just to walk through the heart of the hollow.
So where is he?
He's actually right bordering downtown. He's on 15th and Alder, and right actually where the overpass is, and diagonally opposite from Artist Repertory Theater. And when I went by, there was plenty of parking. His concern was he wanted more short-term parking. As I told him, if it says 4 hours, if you only want to spend 15 minutes there, well, you only put in your 50 cents, and then you get your 15 minutes. So, he just, in fact, Michael, you might want to get in touch with him to see if he's interested in the parking meter committee.
Yeah, good point.
Michael,
Yeah, Terry.
this is an issue that's come up for time and again for 25, 30 years. Several apartment towers, old ones, in that area in particular, have no parking, resented, and it's now a metered zone. It's been restricted parking forever. And actually around the Brown apartments and around the Olive apartments, it's always been metered. The question was put to PBOT a very long time ago as to why a permit to park in a metered area could not be issued. It's done for carpools. Why couldn't it be done for residents? We got a not so polite get out of my office from PBOT each of the last times we brought that up. I don't know what the resistance is. Perhaps it has to do with some sort of precedent that they're worried about establishing. But I doubt that we're going to get much traction without coming up with something that is plausible and innovative.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think we need to have a discussion with them, but I think that needs to happen through the parking,
Well, whether it's through
and safety
parking or
committee.
through us, the one thing that everyone here should be cognizant of is with all the construction, the apartments and the like in that area, they're building a lot more apartments than parking spots.
That's right.
To my knowledge, at this time, if you live in that zone, you're not going to be able to get a parking permit. And again, I brought up when we've had developers, whose responsibility is it to tell the potential tenant? Is it the developer? Is it the management company? Because one of the problems that could occur, and I'm just bringing this up, that if we wanted to say, oh no, they should be getting an A permit, well, then there's going to be no place to park anywhere, whether it's up on Kings Hill or the like. The only ones that'll be safe will be the lucky few on Gander Ridge. So I just bring that to everyone's attention because no one seems to be able to answer when I ask who tells the potential tenant that they're not going to be eligible for a parking permit. And in fact, there's a big controversy going on now in the Pearl where there's a building that's proposed, it's going to be part hotel and part apartments. I think it's maybe 300 units in total. Absolutely zero parking spots, even for the hotel. So that's just something to be cognizant of as we go forward, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's good for us to note that, and again, I think the Parking, Safety, and Transportation Committee really needs to drill down on this and develop a recommendation for the board if we're gonna take a position, but obviously we can't get too far into that right now. Okay, let's move on. We need to elect a treasurer. Or is anybody else have any board communications to disclose? Hearing none. Need to elect a treasurer. Did we have somebody nominated for treasurer?
No, my understanding is we're just gonna leave everything in abeyance right now. We're not writing any checks out.
Okay, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, the point is that he cannot succeed, he has served for 2 terms.
And I cannot be re-elected
Right,
until January. And I'll be
Okay.
more than happy to, particularly if we go forward with Goose Hollow days, because I can move myself further east. But we leave that for another time.
Okay.
What about the minutes from the last meeting?
Oh,
I assume you'll get those, as you know.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll not move those up so we can act on them.
Okay, okay. I'm sorry, Liz, what were you saying?
We need to approve the minutes at some point.
Yeah, but we're getting to that, just almost there. So the other 2 items that I think we don't need to talk about tonight, correct me if I'm wrong, are the stadium good neighbor agreement, because we've already talked about that recently. There's nothing more I hope to.
Actually, we really haven't. What we did was report that there was a GNA that had been approved by the council, a new good neighbor agreement, which leaves the stadium oversight committee, for one, very much in limbo. There are, briefly, there are 4 ways that this could be resolved. They'll probably come up in a meeting in August, finally scheduled, kind of over the objections of the NWDA. The 4 ways to resolve the issue are to legislative revise Title 33's OS zone. That is, make it something else, maybe institutional reserve, I don't know. One would be to revise Title 33 to eliminate the requirement that the oversight committee reports to council. Because that's the only part of the oversight committee that actually makes it subject to the Oregon Open Meetings Law. The third one, which is sort of go along with the whole thing, is schedule the oversight committee meetings a year ahead so that nobody, we NWDA, can object to a meeting being held. Or is for us and NWDA, NWDA has already refused to accept the GNA. We could follow suit and refuse to accept it as well. Which is preposterous because it's an agreement really between the neighborhoods and the stadium operator, not with the city. So, in other words, it's kind of a mess. As a practical matter though, Timbers games have gone better than expected, or better than we feared. The only traffic issues have been a result of PBOT not performing on some of its obligations, closing a traffic lane on Burnside for one, allowing 18th to be closed during the game, and no parking patrol for Thorns games, and the lack of reservation at the curb for the Uber and Lyft ride-sharing cars. So other than that, observe that the Kings Hill Station, which is closed for Timbers games and touted by TriMet as being for safety reasons, remains open for Thorns games with no issues. What the hell is that about? And for Mark, people are still lining up a day early for seating before the Timbers game, but nobody's seen a tent out there yet. So You got half a loaf, man.
I'm shocked that they're not doing what they said they were gonna do. I'm stunned.
Well, the oversight committee hasn't been permitted to meet, so that conversation hasn't been held. There you go.
So that's where we are. Okay.
That's where we
So
are.
are you proposing anything?
I'm
Like a
not
motion
proposing
or
to do
anything?
anything until we can meet on figuring out what the ground rules for going forward on it.
Okay. 5 minutes to 9, everybody. Let's keep moving. Lincoln High School, I don't think, Scott's not here, and I don't think we have anything on that, do we?
No.
Okay, now, Liz, approval of minutes, June 2019.
Actually, that's Eric.
Yes, I sent the minutes out twice. The first time I sent it, there was one correction. I resent it, probably, I don't know, a week to 10 days ago. Did not get any additional response, so I'm under the assumption that it's fine.
Do you have a motion to approve?
Second.
Okay, who moved?
Well, I
There.
decided, I'll be there.
Eric moves,
How many votes?
Jerry seconds.
How many votes do we need, because some people weren't there? How many
Well-
votes do we need to approve?
We have a quorum, so as long as you have a majority of the, so long as you have a majority vote approving the motion to approve, it's approved.
Okay, so
So we need at least 5 votes.
Well, look at it.
No, only a majority of the quorum that's here.
Doesn't that work out to 5 votes?
Let's not go into the weeds, people.
All right. I'm just trying to determine whether I should vote or not.
Okay,
I'm voting
Liz,
twice.
did you get that? Who nominated, or who moved and who seconded?
okay, Eric moved and Jerry seconded.
Very good. All right, let's vote. All in favor?
I just want to say that I'm abstaining because I wasn't here.
Okay, all in favor? 1, 2,
3, 4,
3, 4,
5.
5.
5. 5 in favor. Okay,
I'm
motion
abstaining
carries.
As a result.
And the others are abstaining.
I was
Did you get that, Liz?
Yes, I'm abstaining too.
Okay.
The
We're leaving the
5 in favor, 4 abstaining.
Yeah.
Either way, so,
I want to say something about the minutes, and it's the minute, copying the minutes are not the secretary's responsibility, but we should, because this goes back to when before we took over, we should have copies here for the people who come, so they can read the minutes, just as we should have copies of the agenda, and we should have copies of everything we act upon, and that's why we bought that Xerox machine.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll bring that up with the
3 abstain or
president
4 abstain?
3.
3, okay,
yeah, I-
when
okay.
she's back.
treasurer's report.
Treasurer's report.
Okay,
Go ahead.
even though I'm not the official treasurer, I
Right.
act like one, and I might even look like one, I don't know. But I did go down to the bank to get a copy, and we have $4,875.48 in our checking account, and $250.18 in our savings account. Total is $5,125.66, so we made a penny. So, and,
Great, thank you. Okay, committee reports, and I ask you all, since it's almost 9, to move through these as quickly as you can.
Actually, I have one other.
Go ahead.
Whether it's considered emails or whatever. They just reestablished the West Side Public Safety Action Committee. And originally it was just for downtown, and now they're trying to encompass all the downtown and adjacent neighborhoods.
Excuse me, you guys.
Chinatown, Goose Hollow, the Pearl, the Northwest. Tiffany was also at the meeting. They've had 2 meetings thus far. Right now, they're still in the talking stage of coming out with a mission statement. It seems, even though that's to be determined, the most important thing is dealing with safety and perhaps with recidivism. It seems that there are a number of individuals that are responsible for the mass majority of crime in the area, whether they're break-ins or fires. And what we're trying to do, we're working with the police department, and it's really to hopefully come up with a coherent program that works with all the various neighborhoods. one of the things that I'm doing is I'm also going to the Downtown Neighborhood Association General Meeting. And the reason I'm doing that is to hopefully we can work in conjunction with them, so that if they post signs, as an example, and the city's doing a better job of it, where they're gonna remove an encampment, they could do the same thing in Goose Hollow. So this way, it's not like a balloon where they go from downtown to our area or vice versa. And so that's really a work in progress, and we'll see what comes through all of this. I do have some issues or questions with what they're proposing, but I'll bring that up once they get something that's a little bit more concrete.
And they is the safety committee? or-
No, it's called the West Side PSAC Committee, which is Public Safety Action Committee.
Public Safety Action.
And it used to be the Downtown Public Safety Action Committee. My understanding, it's been in abeyance, but it's something that goes back many, many years. And they gear up and then they tend to fall apart. And so they're now trying to resurrect it by bringing in more of the downtown and surrounding neighborhoods to maybe speak in a more coherent or in a larger group voice.
I can also pipe in on that I'm rather excited to be part of this group because we talk about issues that affect our livability in downtown, like the voodoo donut attack, where that repeat crime offender broke that gal's eye socket, fractured her eye socket. We also talk about the homeless camper who tried to kill the other homeless camper at Safeway in the Pearl. And and so we're talking about the overall impact of crime and safety in the area. So we are looking at lists of the highest repeat crime offenders that affect our area and what we can do and push for legislative change and maybe bring about safety now and livability in the area. So those are the topics.
Okay, thank you, guys. All right, let's move through the committee reports as expeditiously as possible, please. Mark, do you and Scott have anything on communications? Okay. I'm announcing that we will have the next Safety, Parking, and Transportation Committee meeting on the 6th of August at 7 p.m. at Legends. We don't have anything else to report other than we've talked about a number of these issues that need to be discussed in that meeting as well and taken forward. Jerry, you've already covered the stadium oversight?
Yep.
Okay.
And I could cover planning very briefly. We didn't meet.
Okay.
That's
And
the
then,
best report you've ever given. And the most
and then
concise.
Roger, bylaws, you don't have anything, do you?
I know, we did not meet and we will not be meeting. And actually, I would like to say that I think it's time to, since it's an ad hoc committee and we don't really have a full complement of committee members anymore, that we consider that this ad hoc committee is in abeyance.
Okay, that's it, we need to vote on that, or just?
If you want to make a motion to that effect, you can.
I don't know that we need to, it's just up to you, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, well, let's just acknowledge that and move on then.
Yeah.
And then I think the last is NWNW. You guys have anything else to add to that? Eric or Scott? Eric or?
Well, actually, I was not at the last meeting. Some things we didn't report on, because I left at around 7:15, the meeting went on to over 8. As I say, NWNW, I still feel that we have a target on our back, but they're also choosing one other target, who shall remain nameless so we can protect them. And we'll see what transpires with them. We're keeping a relatively low profile. The one thing, and then I'll turn it over to Roger, we've been very, very proactive, reactive, dealing with this issue of neighborhood associations for the last 2 years. When we brought this up to NWNW, again, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, several months ago, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 other neighborhood associations, we were pretty much treated with disdain. And now they seem to be reacting at the 11th hour to get all this stuff done. And so I think we should act as independently as possible as we can.
It's amazing how knowledge that one is going to be executed in a fortnight concentrates the mind wonderfully.
I wear sneakers whenever I go to their meetings to make a quick getaway if needed.
It's all about money. That's what the turnaround is about.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. To continue from him and try to be very briefly about it, we did approve their action plan, which was, the usual sort of bureaucratic thing, and it was like the action plan from last year, and we spent basically the whole bulk of the meeting talking about the letter, which some of you out there have not seen, but which I forwarded to the board, which is basically about process, the way our letter that we passed was, and I'll be glad to share it with you if anybody wants to see it, but they're basically talking about how bad the process of the code committee was. The only other thing that they happily didn't get to was, and Eric has sort of mentioned that, is they have had a committee putting together quote-unquote behavior standards, which are basically a way of increasing the target on our back, but that's for later discussion. And they will not be meeting in August. They will not meet again until September, after the council hearing, if it continues on the 3rd.
Anything else on NWNW?
No, I just have one other thing to add, because I assume you're gonna be adjourning. If any of you are not members of the Goose Hollow Foothills League, we do have membership forms here. You can
Yeah,
join-
please do.
You could join at no charge, although I say this at every meeting, I work for tips, but, just keep that in the back of your mind. Thank you.
So before we adjourn, are there any other comments from members of the audience or others? Daniel?
I pretty much have made a ton of progress on the possibility that of the Hoyt Sequoia being a heritage tree, including right now I'm just waiting to do some final editing work with my parents.
Terrific. Thank you. Anything else?
Yeah.
Roger?
Because we have spent so much time on it, on the code committee thing, I want to make sure everyone is aware that, because I'm on a discussion group about it with the neighborhoods, as is Michael, the more individual letters, the more individual testimony that the council gets is what is going to count. So I want to put that out there for you.
Absolutely. There's also a petition that's circulating, and I'm not sure if we can circulate. I think we can circulate that to our membership, can't we, if we want to? If we just say, don't deliberate, we just say, if you want to sign this, you can.
As long as you're not making any editorial comment about it, you can certainly, I believe, send it out.
Yeah, I don't see why we can't do that. Yes?
Yes, I was asked to come up with a date for the committee to meet for the Goose Holidays Committee. Tentative date is Saturday, the 27th at 10 a.m.
27th?
The 27th, yeah.
Saturday the 27th. What time?
At Zion.
At Zion, what time?
10 a.m.
At 10 a.m. Did
Yeah.
everybody get that? Saturday the 27th at 10
I will
a.m.
email her. I'll need to get her email though.
Oh, that's what I was gonna
And,
ask about the Goose Hollow.
Yeah, Liz, if
Committee,
you
so
could get that, and then we'll
10 a.m. next
we'll
Saturday.
get that out also as an announcement on our listserv, as well as I think we already have the parking, safety, and transportation. On that note, we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
So it's the 27th.